have to finish up. Under current circumstances, we have 3.4 minutes until the building collapses. I did the sweep. I didn't hear anyone calling out, and no heartbeats. Pat, can you feel anyone? No, kiddo. It seems all clear on my end, too. Marvelous. Jan, how is our cover holding up? I'm fine, Roman. I can hold it up for a few more minutes. Remus, do you have yourself together? All bits and pieces accounted for, bro. Though Jan can always check later to make sure. And that's enough. I'm taking you first. Virgins, forward! If you upset him, Remus, I swear to God. Relax, bro. I'm back. Come on, Popstar. They are getting closer. We have to hurry. Maybe they glow first. If I'm too far, I can't. It's just for a minute, Padre. The connection fell away, indicating Virgil had indeed brought Patton out of range. 2 more minutes, Logan stated as he joined Janus at the street side of the shop they were hiding in. I am so glad the looters came to cause extra chaos. I was just thinking that evacuating the citizens from earthquake-shaken buildings wasn't enough of a challenge, Janus grumbled, annoyed. We shall deal with them once we're all outside, Roman assured him as he too joined them. Next passenger, please, Virgil announced as he came to a halt right behind Roman, making him jump. Stop doing that, he demanded. Only if you stop being funny when I do, he teased, while picking up Logan. This never ceases to be mildly embarrassing, Logan huffed, displeased. Being carried out bridal style by their youngest member was a little awkward for everyone. Well, except for Remus, but he wasn't bothered by anything. Do you prefer a piggyback ride? Virgil teased. The circumstances that led to the formation of their team had been far from pleasant. Virgil especially still had nightmares and flashbacks, but they all enjoyed the power sets they were given. Though if they could choose, they'd do without a trauma. The only thing they wouldn't give up for that was each other. And you all secretly like being held, Virgil insisted before taking off. Roman and Janus exchanged a glance, wondering if Virgil was just teasing or if he actually could tell that they appreciated the rare opportunity to have Virgil actually welcome physical closeness. They all were pretty close after everything, and any awkwardness about being emotionally vulnerable around one another had gone out of the window long ago. Still, Virgil felt he needed to act tough to make them not worry about him. It didn't work, but he still tried. I better get going. I'm not fond of Logan's ticking clock, Roman stated. Yeah, I'll give us a little more cover. V only needs 10 seconds to get me out anyway. Jan didn't want to risk the rioters seeing them now. There was no telling what they'd do. Roman nodded and started to sprint to the exit. Janus turned away, but then his heart stopped when he heard a crashing sound and a pained outcry. Roman! Virgil gasped behind him. I'm fine, get Jay, Oh! Roman cut himself off with a loud curse. You hurt your ankle, Virgil concluded. Janus looked back and watched as the young hero gathered Roman in his arms. Jay, I'll be back for you soon, okay? He didn't wait for an answer. Janus considered just dropping the illusion of an empty trash store with faulty wiring and make his way to the back to meet Virgil halfway. But the rioters were hot on their heels now. He couldn't risk anyone following them. Not that anyone would be able to once Virgil had him, but if anyone was inside when the building gave out. Suddenly, something flew through a window. A flaming bottle? Janus could see it heading to an aisle with cleaning products. He realized what was about to happen, and at the same time that he saw Virgil return and hesitate upon detecting something moving in his peripheral. Janus acted without thinking. He dropped the illusion and tackled Virgil to the ground. Janus moved to cover Virgil's body with his own. There was an infinite fraction of a second of blinding pain. He never even registered the sound of the explosion, just pain and then darkness. He heard the murmuring and zooming and beeping of machines. He felt disoriented. What happened? Come on, Jay. Please wake up. Pardon? It sounded like he'd been crying. Patton, I don't think. Logan's voice. Not quite as steady and certain as he normally sounded. Don't finish that sentence. He has to wake up. I don't know what we're supposed to do if he... Patton started sobbing, the sound muffled by something. That wasn't right. Janus tried to open his eyes, but it was hard. Come, we are supposed to stick together. And I'm Virgil. Virgil? Suddenly Janus remembered. No, Virgil had to be fine. He made sure of that. Right? Janus forced his eyes open and found Patton clinging to Logan's frame on his right. Remus sitting uncharacteristically quiet and still behind them. He blinked a few times. Something was off. His sides. And why did his face feel weird? Everything felt weird. Hi, was all he was able to force out of his throat. Remus perked up. Patton and Logan nearly jumped at the unexpected sound. All of them had bloodshot eyes. He'd expected that much from Patton. He was in a hospital and something was going on with Virgil. But it took a lot for Logan and Remus to cry. Janus, Logan breathed as they all gathered at his bedside. Logan grabbed his hand to squeeze it. Janus squeezed back and felt Logan relax instantly. Janus tried, hoping he managed to bring across the pleading tone he intended, despite the pain in his throat keeping him from saying much. You've been unconscious for the past month. There were several complications, and you have only been breathing on your own for the past 21 hours and 28 minutes. That explained the pain in his throat. But he asked. He was burned. He was no idiot. He just wanted to know how bad. And Patton could show him. I don't know, Jan. Patton bit his lip, looking at Logan for help. Their academic friend nodded in agreement. There is someone like us on staff. We were to alert her once you'd awoken so she could heal you up some more. It is probably best not to distress you until she has, Logan urged. So it was really bad. Cool, he managed. Maybe then he would be able to talk better afterwards. Very well. Logan pressed the button. Remus didn't do sugarcoating. He would tell him no matter how bad. Roman is watching the emo. We'll all go see them together soon, Remus murmured. Now Janus was getting really worried. What was going on? Remus was never this restrained. Remus, we have all repetitively told you, you did not delay Virgil in any way, Logan insisted sternly. Yeah, Rem, none of us think you did anything wrong that day, and I'm sure Jan and V would agree. Wait, why hadn't Virgil told him to stop moping yet? Why wasn't he here? Why did he need someone to watch over him? I should have stayed still. I knew we had little time left. Instead, I made Virgil slow his step to make sure he didn't drop me. We all delayed him in our own way, Remus. It was a collection of circumstances. If anything, I should have taken the violent nature of the rioters into account and adjusted my time frame accordingly. We all relied too much on my prediction and don't you start that again. I could have tried to get a feel of the crowd and told you. Then you might have known there was a risk to consider. Patton protested. Patton, you couldn't have possibly. It's my job, Lo. I should look after all of you guys. I'm the one who keeps us happy and together, and now everyone is sad and Patton was shaking with sobs again. Only now did Janus remember that when Patton was tired, physically or emotionally, his empathic ability played up without him wanting to. His telepathic link, on the other hand, became much harder to establish under such circumstances, which meant that while Patton couldn't find comfort in linking with the others, his usual coping tool for anything bad going on, he felt his own feelings on top of everyone else's, unfiltered. Logan seemed to realize this too. Patton, I'm sorry, I should have realized. You need not burden yourself with our guilt as well as your own. Please, please forgive me this oversight, he asked with a comforting hand on Patton's shoulder, the other still holding Janus. Patton gave a small, tired smile. It's not your fault, Lo. You guys don't have to repress your own feelings just for me. We're all a bit stressed out and, pardon me, everyone else immediately looked to the door. Well, everyone except Janus, who couldn't turn his head very well, but he got there. His left eye still was not right, but he could discern the figure at the door. Hopefully, this person was the one who could get him out of this bed so he could finally get answers. Ah, Dr. LaFay, thank you for coming. As you can see, Janus has woken up. Could you... The figure came closer and seemed to look down at Janus. Hello, Elena LaFay, she, her. Your eye isn't doing so well, it seems. She sounded kind, and a little disappointed by her observation. That wasn't good. No, see, he croaked. And your throat probably feels pretty painful too. I'm going to do my best to help the healing process along, but I find that I get the best results in several sessions rather than one go. You just tell me when it starts to feel painful. That might indicate that I am rushing some stitches or something like that. Sometimes the body just protests being forced to heal. It is important that you are honest, or it'll be worse in the end, okay? Janus felt frustrated. What was the point of a healing ability if it couldn't get him back to normal right away? But if he could get well enough to get out of the room to wherever Roman and Virgil were, then that was enough, right? Okay, he promised. Good. I have told this to your friends, but I'll repeat it to you. Thank you for speaking out about it all. You guys make life much easier for the rest of us. Thank you. Janus thought she sounded sincere, but he could not see her face clearly enough to be sure. No, that was as far as he got. Top to bottom then, she said. It was not a question. Janus expected Remus to laugh or make a joke, but he didn't, and that was terrifying. Did he really feel that responsible? Or did he look so terrible that even Remus couldn't make light of the situation? Here we go. It started with a light tingling sensation in his left eye. It became warm, and then it was kind of like a static. Stop, he croaked, as he forcibly shut his eye when the first sting occurred. When he opened his eye, he could see improvement. It wasn't as sharp as he was used to, but he no longer felt like he was half blind. Wow, it looks a lot better, Patton exclaimed, probably trying to assure Janus. Sadly, he could only think about how Patton didn't say he was back to normal. I'm going to focus on your face now, the doctor warned, and the tingling started again. Stop, Janus rasped again, when it started to feel like a web of glowing hot wires was put against his skin. Okay, I'll move on to your throat. This shouldn't hurt as much, considering most of the trauma from the accident has healed on its own. Any damage left now is from the breathing and feeding tubes. This is just going to make you more comfortable with speaking. This time the doctor stopped before Janus got even a little uncomfortable. How's that? She asked. Well, that didn't hurt. Better. Thank you. Good. Now let's see if we can get you well enough to leave the bed, all right? I'm sure you'd like to check in on your other friends as well. Yes, please let me see them. Okay. The doctor took in a deep breath, and the warm sensation kept traveling up and down the left side of his body, from his fingertips to his shoulders to his torso, down his legs to his toe and back. Up and down, over and over again. Stop, please, he gasped when the warmth started to burn. Okay, how does that feel? Can you try and sit up? Janus blinked. Right, he stayed put so far. To be fair, even moving his head had been exhausting a few minutes ago. Yeah, he murmured as he carefully moved his arms. His left stung a bit, but it was manageable. He'd deal with it if it meant he'd get to see Virgil. Careful, Jan, Patton pleaded as he frantically flayed his hands around, wanting to push him down, but scared to touch. It's all right, sir. I think he's got it, the doctor stated soothingly. Once Janus sat up, the doctor nodded satisfied and left with the promise of checking on them again in an hour. Patton, will you show me now? Janus asked as soon as they were left alone. Please. I need to know, he pleaded. He could feel something wasn't right with his body. He was too much of a coward to simply look down, though. He told himself he wanted to see the full picture, that he wanted to see what the public would see when he inevitably would be swarmed by reporters. But honestly, he hoped that if he looked through Patton's eyes, he wouldn't hate what he'd see as much. Patton once again turned to the others. Remus squirmed, avoiding his eyes. Logan sighed and squeezed Patton's shoulder, encouraging him to turn to him. He will only get more stressed by not knowing. We can hardly keep him away from reflective surfaces. Best he sees it when he has a chance to mentally prepare. With that, Logan's steady gaze directed itself towards Janus. You are burnt on the entire left side of your body. There were many skin transplants performed to help save your life. Are you really ready to see yourself? Janus wasn't sure if he was, but he knew he had to see. He gave them a firm nod. Patton sighed, resigned to the decision. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Janus struggled not to scream out in horror. The man he saw through Patton's eyes wasn't him. The left side of his body was an awful patchwork. It couldn't be. And this was after accelerated healing? Is this why Roman and Virgil aren't here? He asked with a shaking voice. He wasn't sure how he'd feel if the answer was yes. No, of course not, Patton exclaimed. It should have been a relief, but if they weren't avoiding him, then why? What happened? Silence filled the room. Patton was linked with the rest of us, Remus started, his voice unnervingly normal. When the explosion went off, you know how we sometimes link up subconsciously? We all blanked for a second due to the pain. So he sent out an SOS, and everyone had felt what did this to him. But Roman, he shot in action. By the time we realized you two were in danger, he was already back at the building. He told us he'd found you. to buried under some rubble. You were on top of Virgil, who wasn't burned at all, but he was unconscious. Roman managed to wake him up, though, and, well, we finally found out what happened when survival, their nickname for Virgil's power set, is pushed to the limit. Virgil told Roman to pick you up, and next thing Roman knew, you were all back with us, and Virgil collapsed from overexertion. Patton and Logan nodded. The doctors say he pushed his muscles so hard that they broke a few bones. There were hairline fractures all over, and he still hasn't woken up, Patton explained sadly. Roman aggravated his injury going after you two, but he couldn't be made to care about his own recovery. He has refused to leave Virgil's side unless he knew one of us took his place. We've been taking turns to let him freshen up and visit you. Well, Patton and Remus have. Apparently my care was unsatisfactory. Who knows what is going on in his head? Logan added, clearly still a little hurt over whatever had led to that decision, and frustrated by what must have been countless fruitless attempts to get Roman to listen to the doctors. Janus could easily imagine why their theater-loving friend might be acting that way. Roman had declared himself to be their leader, despite not being the oldest or most experienced in anything. It had been his day to save people, though, and they all understood that he felt responsible for putting them on this path. His guilt must run deep. I have to go to see them, Janus stated. This time everyone nodded without even a second's hesitation. You won't be able to walk on your own just yet. Even without your injuries, your muscles haven't been used in a month. They will have to rebuild strength through physical therapy, Logan informed him while Patton pulled up a wheelchair. I have used the past month to learn how to help you get settled without hurting you. I assumed you would prefer that over nurse, he added. Janus smirked. Oh no, I was totally hoping some random person would be yanking my body around. The others chuckled. We missed you, Jan. Patton smiled warmly, and Janus could feel how sincere he was. He could only really smile with his right side, so even when he tried to do it sincerely, it probably looked like a smirk. So he gave his friends more of the humor they'd be missing. I'd say I missed you too, but I didn't. He could feel the chuckle vibrate through Logan's chest as he carefully maneuvered him into the wheelchair. Patton put himself in charge of steering him, while Remus and Logan walked on either side of him, like they were escorting someone powerful or famous. And technically, Janus was both. They all were. They just tended to forget that around one another. But it became rather apparent when they left the room and there were 2 armed police officers stationed in front of the door. We are going to see Instinct now. You may try to stop us, but it'll only waste 13 minutes and 29 seconds of all of our time before we convince you to let us through. At the most, Logan stated. He said it so firmly that anyone who didn't know him would assume he knew this as a fact, thanks to his predictive reasoning. But Janus, and the others surely too, could tell that he was lying, meaning the guards might be able to stand their ground if they chose to do so. But as no one bet against Logan's predictions, the guards stepped aside and let them through. There were guards in front of the room next to them too. These 2, however, stepped aside right away. Remus opened the door, and they could hear Roman's voice. I'll let you pick the movies for a month. I won't ever complain about your loud music again. I'll admit I'm a big idiot. You can even have that in writing. Just please. Please, V. We can't lose you. Janus' heart ached. Their friends had gone through it hell the past month. Patton rolled Janus inside, and he felt tears jump to his eyes. Well, at least his tear ducts worked. Roman was holding Virgil's limp hand in his own, his head resting in the crook of his arm on the bed as he gazed up at their friend's sleeping face. He was sitting in what looked like a very uncomfortable chair, and had yet to realize he had company. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair was a mess. Janus and Roman were easily the vainest in the group. They knew this and had accepted it about themselves. They often bonded over fashion and the sorts. Logan came closest, though he did not care for fashion or anything like that. He just carefully maintained a professional appearance at all times. The others didn't seem to live in the same world when it came to caring for one's appearance, except for Remus. He was from a different universe. And yet, here both theatric, normally impeccably groomed men were absolute messes. You look terrible, Janice drawled casually, because there is no right way to draw attention to your presence in these circumstances. Roman looked up, his eyes wide, a small ghost of a smile, a tiny spark in his eyes as he took him in. Well, at least his new look didn't gross him out. Then again, he had apparently seen him look worse. Somehow. I mean, so do I, but I was in a coma for a month. What is your excuse? Now the smile did break free, though the spark turned into silent tears. Janice would take it. He could see Roman was struggling with the desire to come over and check on him and the need to stay close to Virgil. Luckily, Patton rode Janus over to be right in front of Roman, so he wouldn't have to choose. He turned in his seat, switching Virgil's hand from his right to his left so he could place his now freed hand gently on the scarred side of Janus' face. Janus gasped in awe. Leave it to Roman to know, to understand, that Janus needed someone to treat his ruined health as if nothing had changed. Roman angled Janus' head and his own so that their foreheads touched. "Welcome back," he whispered. "Good to be back," Janus responded, feeling an immense weight fall off his chest. Roman sat back up again, now holding Janus' hand instead of his face. "I hope, though I do not deserve such a gift, that you can find it in yourself to forgive me." And there it was. "For forgetting how to use a brush?" Janus scoffed. Roman's eyes flashed in annoyance. "This is no laughing matter. If I hadn't tripped, you and Virgil would have both been out of the building when that bomb went off. If anyone had ended up in the hospital, it would have been me, and rightfully so. I have no right to be left with nothing but a fractured ankle. It even healed over by now. Virgil, however, won't be fully better for months, even if he wakes up. And you could have died. You were told to prepare for... And the doctors don't know why Virgil hasn't woken up yet. And I should have protected you both. Roman was full on sobbing now. "Kiddo, no," Patton whispered weakly. "Don't be stupid, Romano. Anyone else would have waited for the V train and ended up caught in the blast as well, or something," Remus argued. "Indeed, and there's always a chance that Virgil would have stopped to pick you up anyway and took a moment to tease you before taking you away. You know he likes carrying the prince like a princess. You are his favorite to whisk away. There are an infinite amount of things that still could have gone wrong," Logan reasoned earnestly. Roman looked around at them in surprise. "But I..." Then he stopped himself and allowed himself a chuckle. "I guess. You all have some good points," he sighed before letting go of Jen's hand and turning back towards the bed, switching his hand once more before dragging his left through his hair and rubbing his eyes. "Now, if only... Tell me someone took a picture of the prince as a pauper." When they heard that, everyone shut up in attention, except for Janus, who didn't have the strength to do much more than hold his position right now. But he too turned his head to the bed, where Virgil was blinking his eyes as he tried to take everyone in. "You guys look like you've seen a ghost," he chuckled. Then his eyes landed on Janus and reddened. Janus prepared himself. Last time Virgil saw him, he didn't even have so much as a freckle to tarnish his complexion. Now, Jay, are you... Does it hurt? He asked tentatively. Well, no point in lying. I felt better, but he didn't have to be too honest either. Well, for what it's worth, I think you look wicked. And anyone who has a problem is going to have to deal with me. Roman had had enough of sitting around and was embracing Virgil. You are awake! He exclaimed in relief. Okay, how long? A month, Logan supplied as he came to stand at Virgil's other side and ran his hand affectionately through his hair. You have a few broken bones that have yet to fully heal, and a lot of physical therapy ahead. But now that you are awake, rest assured that you will make a full recovery. Virgil nodded in understanding. Princey, can you let go of me now? He asked. I don't think any one of us are ready for that, kiddo. Patton stated through his happy tears as he sat down on Logan's side of the bed and placed a hand on Virgil's knee. Yeah, I finally have my creep and horror buddy back, Remus exclaimed with glee, finally back to normal now that everyone was awake and together it seemed. Virgil, I thought, Roman gasped, the sob threatened to overtake him yet again. Relax, Princey, you don't get rid of me that easily, Virgil chuckled. Then he looked at Janus with some sadness in his eyes. Thanks for saving me. I wish it hadn't been needed, though. Janus met Virgil's eyes earnestly. Of course, Virgil. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. And you have nothing to be sorry for, okay, kiddo? You did nothing wrong, Patton insisted. Indeed, Logan started, probably about to do the same rational breakdown of Virgil's actions and possible consequences of other decisions on his part as he'd done for everyone else but himself. I know, Virgil chuckled with a roll of his eyes, surprising everyone. If there was one member of their group they could assume would find a way to blame himself for everything wrong with the world, it was Virgil. What? You have all been helping me with my negative thinking, remember? Hindsight 2020 in this case. There is no use in dwelling on what happened if in the moment you acted with the right intentions and to the best of your ability. No point in playing the blame game. He droned off the last part with a fond smile at Logan, who stared at him for a moment, and then let out a single laugh, followed by another, and another. Patton joined in with giggles. Remus started cackling, and Roman finally had to let Virgil go in order to laugh fully with tears in his eyes. Janus had to settle for a warm smile on half his face and a slight shaking of his shoulders. What did I say? Virgil frowned. Nothing. It's just that we all have been playing the blame game ourselves, without even realizing, Janus informed Virgil. And now you, out of everyone, have put things in perspective again. We are all here, and everything else we can deal with. Virgil smiled at that. Yeah, we can. Many challenges were still ahead, but that didn't matter. They were all together again, and all was right in the world.